children whose cases have been entrusted to us. We are committed to providing them excellent representation, and we do that because our Constitution guarantees everyone the right to counsel when their liberty is at stake. And we do more than that. You know, our clients don't get to choose us. We often meet them during some of the hardest moments of their lives. Therefore, at our core, we value being zealous advocates. We value to strive not only to deliver excellence in our representation of each and every client, but also to stand with our clients and the community in working to create a more just, fair, and compassionate legal system. Our staff is made up of legal assistants, paralegals, attorneys, interns, social workers, client advocates, investigators, and an administrative services team that have committed themselves daily to being public defenders, requiring us to do this work to ensure that our clients are seen as more than just names on a docket. We exist to remind people that our clients deserve dignity, respect, and humanity regardless of what they look like, where they come from, or what they are charged with. And I want to take a moment to acknowledge the great work that my team does, my staff, and to thank them for their service. We are client-centered and committed to innovative advocacy. We are partners with the community and engaged in systemic reform, particularly around bail and ending wealth-based detention. We seek equal justice for some of our most vulnerable residents who often end up in jail because of the shortcomings in other systems, the lack of quality education, limited access and available resources for addiction or mental health support, and simply because they experienced a childhood steeped in poverty and riddled with traumatic events. We are committed to partnering with other criminal justice stakeholders to focus on practices that are restorative, rehabilitative in nature, and focus on reentry. And in short, we are dedicated to the decriminalization of poverty. I say this emphatically, there is no justice without the Public Defender's Office. We are continuously grateful for Metro's commitment to public defense and providing us with the funds to accomplish our goals. Metro has consistently funded the majority of our office's budget, which enables us to operate and represent our clients, and for that we are grateful. Our budget requests this year mainly focus on our needs related to retention and recruitment of our staff, addressing our workload, and keeping up with the resources and technology that we have to deal with day to day as we defend our clients, particularly related to technology and the changes to the way we store body-worn camera footage. I'm happy to talk specifically about those requests. The major issue for us is a request we made around parity for our lawyers. What happens when a lawyer in my office reaches a certain level of experience, both the state scale and what we pay Nashville's district attorneys begins to outpace them greatly. And so I have lawyers in my office who have been with us for a long time, but they can't earn in the same capacity, and it becomes a retention issue for me. Within the last couple of months, our office has seen some of our experienced lawyers leave us, quite frankly, because they can't stay around with the heavy caseloads we're asking them to take on, with the sometimes double and triple the recommended workload for serious felony cases, and make the amount of money that they continue to make each year. We have made strides in paying as much as we can. We spend all of the money that we can to offer merit-based increases and give increases to our salaries whenever we can. But that has not been sufficient to sustain our senior level staff. And that is where we see the largest gap. So we have asked for a large lump sum payment to create parity for our lawyers in those areas and other staff members who are not receiving a salary that is on par with their counterparts in the DA's office or across the state as public defenders. We have asked for a position to address our workload. We have been a part, fortunately, of participating in a new workload study, and we are finding that many of our lawyers, particularly those, again, who handle serious felony cases, it was interesting to be here and hear Sheriff Hall talking about the increases to his population, because we see those increases because we are the ones who are visiting with those clients in the jails. We also see the increases and know the increases that the criminal legal system is experiencing on a day-to-day basis. And so in order to be able to address those increases, I have to be able to move my staff with the times. If I can't increase staff and increase pay, then I can't expect to retain the best lawyers to do this work. And then we continue to create the disparities that don't allow us to provide excellent representation to our clients. So I'll be quiet for a minute.
Colleagues, does anyone have any questions? I knew the first hand that was going to go up. Public Health and Safety Chair Evans, I'll start with you. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Chair. I have, I guess, could you give us an example when you're talking about the parity issue between like a tenured or seasoned attorney in your office and what that person would make if they were at the public defender, or I'm sorry, the district attorney's office?
Sure, I have done this calculation actually for all of the lawyers in my office. So let's take a lawyer who happens to be with us tonight, who has been with our office more than 20 years. His salary if he were in the district attorney's office right now would exceed $175,000. And I pay him about $45,000 less than that each year. On lawyers who have been in our office more than 10 years, their counterparts in the DA's office would make between $134,000 to $154,000. Many of them I can't even pay more than $100,000. So the disparities are pretty wide. When I first got in this position, there was a lot of conversation in this body about parity from the DA perspective. At the time, the parity issue was around starting salaries. And none of my comments here are meaning to say the DAs are not to be paid what they deserve to be paid, because they are. I'm talking about what we are not being paid right now as public defenders. And so those conversations at that time were around how our office salaries at the time started off a little bit more. And what I was cautioning this body about then was that we have to be careful addressing that issue now, because the scale outpaces us so much as the years of experience increase. And that is what we are finding now. As I start to have more lawyers who have made it past that 7-year mark, and those are the ones I really, really want to keep, I can't possibly expect them to continue to work for between $20,000 and $50,000 less than what they could make elsewhere.
Thank you. That's all I had for now.
Thank you, Chair Evans. Councilmember Prepty, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This might be a leading question, but I'm sure nobody's going to object. But Chief Johnson-Moore, could you talk about the sort of workload of your line attorneys and how difficulty in retaining increases workloads, which then can have a direct effect at the quality of representation that some of our most vulnerable citizens are receiving?
Sure, and I will, if it's okay with you, talk about it in terms of the people that it's happened to and how that cycle sort of affects all of the folks on the levels. So one of my lawyers who left us very recently was a lawyer who had been in our office for 8 years, who was on our serious felony team, and according to the newest workload standards that we can have, and without getting way in the weeds, those workload standards provided a number based on hours, 2,080 hours, and that calculation was to consider if you went to work every week, 40 hours a week, and never took a vacation. We know that's not reasonable. That's not even something that I would ask my staff to do. But even using that 2080 number, that particular lawyer that I'm talking about that just left us had a double caseload, almost double, inching really close to triple the caseload. That lawyer carried the most serious felony cases we could have in our office, and they doubled the caseload numbers on that. So when that lawyer leaves, then I have to ask other folks either to take those cases that are already on that team and in the same predicament, that all the lawyers on that serious felony team are handling double the caseload. So when they leave, I ask them to take it on. Or I ask other people to shift around and move to those teams to take on those cases. But really what happens is it trickles all over the office, and I'm asking people to take on more cases than they need to. And that situation applies to so many folks on my team. There are more than half the lawyers in my criminal court teams are carrying more than the caseload that they should. And that is a problem, because we can't provide ethical representation to our clients, but we also can't expect to retain these lawyers at that level of work. And we have done a lot of work to try and make sure that we are being consistent with what it means to be an excellent lawyer. So what that means for us is a brand new lawyer starting in the public defender's office would not be assigned a murder case. And so even if I have lawyers who have been here maybe a year and they've made it to a criminal court team, they can't take on the caseload of those serious felony cases of those lawyers that I'm speaking about on our criminal court teams. They can't handle those cases. So either I tell the city, I'm not taking those cases, we're going to workload conflict off of them, and you're going to have to find and pay out, the state's going to have to pay the appointed bar to do it. Or I'm asking people to do more than what I should be asking based on all of the workload standards that we have. Or I'm just comfortable with every single lawyer on all of my teams in general sessions, in criminal court, on our serious felony team, on our juvenile team, to do more work than any of the evidence would ask us to do. Hopefully that answered your question in a roundabout.
Yes, it did. Thank you. And just a brief follow-up with that, could you share some numbers, like what the average or median caseload would be for an attorney who is working in general sessions, who tend to be your more junior attorneys?
Yes. The last numbers that we received from the Criminal Justice Planning Department said that we represented about 5,000 of the cases that moved through general sessions. There are between 13 and 15 lawyers on that team at any given time. So I am terrible in math, but the last time we calculated those numbers, that means our lawyers handle between 100 and 300 cases, the ones who were there at a time, in sessions, in general sessions. We have consistently asked those numbers for our general sessions lawyers to stay around 100. That is I'm not going to say ideal, but that is the caseload that we try to stay under on our general sessions team. 100 cases, variety of levels per lawyer.
And last thing that I'll say is that that each of these 100 cases represents an individual who is very well a Davidson County resident, who needs these important legal services, and each case represents hours of work, either speaking directly to the client, directly to the alleged victim, or speaking directly to client's family, or speaking directly to the DA's office, and trying to get the case resolved. So I appreciate you being here, Chief Johnson-Moore, and thank you for all that you do for the city.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Prepty. I saw Councilwoman Webb next.
Yes, thank you. I can tell you're very passionate about what you do. That's great.
Yes.
Have you ever put like a dollar amount to what the average pay for your attorneys is per hour? You know how attorneys bill by the hour? Have you ever put that into perspective based on like taking one of your attorneys, how many hours they've worked and what the average pay they would have got for that an hour?
Not in that same scope, because the hourly rate for an appointed attorney is at $50 an hour, and there is a cap. So we don't pay the appointed lawyers enough to do this work either. So I don't look at it in that way. I look at the salaries in terms of their yearly gross salary and how it compares to their counterparts across the state. It's certainly something we could do. But we would exceed those cap numbers that are in place by the state for an appointed lawyer very quickly, because we don't have caps for how much time it takes for you to spend on a case.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Council Lady Sora. You're recognized. And I saw Council Lady Webb's hand first, Council Lady Sora, but you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Ms. Johnson, for being here and for the work that you do. And I do agree with Attorney Prepty that this work is very important. It's for the people that need it the most. Two clarification, and then one question that might need finance, but on the clarification, two of the things that were not funded, we talk a lot about the position, but you did ask for a cloud-based storage.
Yes.
Can you speak to that? And then the other one is also, which I thought was equally important, was the $155,000 for that felony case. What is that called? Serious felony workload. And this came as a result of an audit.
Yes.
that says you needed that. So can you speak to those two requirements for me, please?
Yes, the request that we made for cloud-based storage is in response to the change from MMPD to move body-worn camera footage from on-prem storage to cloud-based storage. The recommendation for us from JIS was that we needed to move with the times on that as well. There was not going to be a way that we could continue to store body-worn camera footage on-prem if the police department was moving to a cloud-based system. So we began talking with JIS, talking with members of MMPD, and trying to figure out a solution for us related to that. And the solution that has been recommended to us is to purchase cloud-based storage essentially through the same company that is doing all of the storage for the police department, and that is the amount that it would cost each year for 5 years. That $62,000 number is the amount per year for 5 years for us to be able to do that. Without moving to cloud-based storage for us, we don't really know what the solution is, because we have to store evidence in our cases, and we have different retention policies for our evidence than, say, the state would have to retain, or even what has to be retained on the cloud for the police department. We have different retention rules for that. And so if we don't find a solution for storing this footage, then we're talking about continue to store it on-prem, and we don't have the storage capacity to hold it all, which is one of the reasons that we moved from on-prem to cloud-based with the police department. And I'm sure Chief Drake is here and can address that in more detail.
Thank you. And so you will be doing the same thing and having the same kind of access in terms and storage for the body-worn camera.
Yes.
What about there was an audit finding, there's a compliance requirement that says that you have serious felony workload.
Yes.
So can you speak to that for me, please?
I can. Our audit in 2021, we had two, I guess we call them dings. One of them related to workload. We exceeded our workload based on the then very old workload standard that we used, which was called the Spangenberg numbers. Our audit found that we exceeded the recommended workload for that, and what we were asked to do in response is to work on a plan to address workload over the years. And the response that we gave to that is that we would address workload in the following ways. We would look at it in our own office and see if there were ways we could manage and effectively manage our workload internally. The second thing that we said we would do is we would ask for more resources to do the work. And so we have done that consistently each year. We have really tried to ask for positions to address workload. Mainly the past few budget cycles, we focused those in on our serious felony workload, because that's where we're seeing our lawyers carrying more of a caseload than is recommended. And then the final thing that we sort of said that we would do each year is to make sure that we participate in the national conversations around public defender workload, and we do that. Our office was selected to participate in the workload study that was completed this year by RAND and other groups that created this scientific study around workload. I'm a board member of the National Association for Public Defense. We stay on the front lines of also talking about this in the national market. And so we have really been trying to do all of the things we said we would do to address workload. But the biggest thing we can do is add resources. And so that's what I do each year, is try to add resources.
So this one position, you've been monitoring it. Are you now within, if you don't get this position, does it still put you not in compliance, or are you now in compliance? I just need to know the impact of funding or not funding that one position.
I'm not going to be in compliance if I don't get that one position. To be honest with you, I'm not going to be in compliance if we do get that one position. My workload for my attorneys in criminal court who are handling serious felony cases is too much.
Okay. And the last question that I'm going to ask is on your FTE.
Yes.
And I might just need some clarification. So when I'm looking at it, you say you have 7 vacant positions, but they're really not vacant because they'll be starting in September.
Yes.
Now, this is where I got confused. When I'm looking at the numbers based on your actual spending to date, you're tracking your on par. So the 7 that are starting in September, are they replacing people that are there now? So that's why my number is still looking the same? Or do you understand what I'm saying? If you're going to have the same budget as last year and you bring in 7 people in September, are they replacing people that were there in FY24? I just want
Yes.
that clarification. Okay, good.
That's the only way we can bring in positions right now is to fill based on turnover. And what we do, again, we've created a lot of standards in our office to try to do this work at an excellent level. And one of those things is we believe that bringing lawyers in a class means that we can offer them an in-classroom-based training program before we send them out to handle dockets on their own. And so at a certain point in our hiring cycle, we will hold all of our vacancies. So what you see as vacancies, we are holding those so we can bring in a class. We don't get new positions each year to bring in a class. So once I know what my vacancy number is likely to be, I fill those positions based on those vacancies, and at a certain point, I hold them to bring in a new class of lawyers in September. So in September, I will have 7 new lawyers, and we are actually in the process of hiring one last one to make that a class of 8 in September. So right now, they're just vacant in my office or becoming vacant over the next couple of months.
Does that not create savings because of that time difference where you have those positions not being paid?
It creates payroll savings, yes.
So can you use those payroll savings for like the cloud?
I cannot.
Storage? You cannot.
It's one-time funding, the payroll savings. It doesn't roll in that way because I'm going to fill the position. And the advice we receive, and I would be happy if that's not accurate, but the advice we receive is that you can't use the salary and fringe money for the operating cost of the agency.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Lady Sawyer. Vice Chair Toombs, you're recognized, and then we'll go to Council Lady Allen.
Thank you, Chair. Chief Johnson, how many attorneys would you need for your workload to be at an acceptable level?
That's a great question. When we did an analysis based on the brand new workload numbers, we focused in again on those serious felony cases, and that number said we needed an additional 7. Now that is, like I said, based on the number of folks with the experience level that we needed to be able to handle the type of caseload that would, your homicides, your Class A felonies, all of the more serious things.
And how many do you currently have?
I have 57. Well, if you consider the part-timers, then I have 49 and a half. No, I'm wrong. Again, math is not my thing. I have 54 and a half.
Okay, and that's for the entire department, the serious felonies and the lower level?
That's every division, 57 lawyers.
Okay, and so for the serious felonies, how many folks handle those cases?
Let's see. On my serious felony team, I have 3. And then in each of the criminal courts, there are 2. So that's 6 criminal courts with 2 people. So 12 plus 3 is about 15 of those. And then I have other folks in the office, like here, members of my executive leadership team, who technically can take a serious felony caseload, but that means they can't do the administrative work of the office. So add them to that list. That means I have 17 lawyers who fall in the category of being able to handle that serious felony stuff.
And for your general sessions court cases you have, are those attorneys also overworked?
Yes, I would, putting myself in their shoes, yes, they would say they are. In the way we look at numbers, in the way we look at workload, their numbers right now fall within line of the recommended workload. So they are not similarly situated to those in criminal court.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Council Lady Allen, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks for all y'all do. We had some very enthusiastic and passionate lawyers who came to us and talked about a thing called Indigent Defense and Excellence in Advocacy.
Yes.
And they were asking for $880,000 to handle 50 serious felony cases.
Yes.
I don't think that's in this budget anywhere either. If we had $880,000 to play with, would that be a good way to take the load off, or would it be better to give it to y'all to hire a few more lawyers, or any opinions on that? How
Yes.
best do we serve the public in that way?
I I would say I spent the better part of the year last year talking with those lawyers about the issues with the appointed bar. And so I want to be very clear that the issues that they have raised are very true. We do need to address the low pay for those who take appointments in our criminal legal system, because everybody who is charged with a crime, whether they are a public defender case or not, they need an excellent lawyer. We are not able to provide folks with excellent lawyers when we don't have the resources to do so. And so the issue related to the appointed bar is a real one, and it is a relevant part of our conversation. Where I have to sort of remove myself from the discussion is when we start to talk about financing that. There is an argument that Metro, by creating the public defender's office, said that we're going to take responsibility for all of the indigent defendants. That's not how it works currently. What happens currently is you take majority responsibility for those cases that are mine. And if it is a conflict, then the state foots the bill for the indigent defense for those individuals through the Indigent Defense Task Force of the state. It is a state function. There have been many years of trying to get the state to increase the amount that we pay the appointed bar, and that has been unsuccessful. I think the recommendation this year, the initial request was to move it to $80 an hour, and they're landing on $60, which is not enough. And so the creative ask is for Metro to supplement that hourly rate with this $800,000 number. And where I stand on that is indigent defense is a global both conversation. I don't see a world wherein the city can say we're going to fund the IDEA project and not fund the public defender's office. I think that if we have abundant resources, we should do as much as we can for everyone who is charged with a crime, because we need it. The resources that it takes to prosecute cases far exceed what I can do. The state has so many more resources than I do. And those disparities mean I can't represent people to the best of my ability. So it is something that we should certainly consider doing if we can. But I speak to you as the chief public defender of a Metro agency, and if you have $880,000 to provide to indigent defense, I'm going to ask you to provide it to my office so that I can continue to provide the resources that I need to our clients. I will continue to be a person that works with anybody on solutions for the appointed bar as well. I've been a part of those conversations, and I do think that is important, but I can't rightfully sit before you and say I'm asking you to do that and not do all of the things that I need. And as long as I've been the public defender, this is now, I think, my 7th budget. Each year, for the most part, with the exception of one, I have asked the city to give me more lawyers to take on this issue. And while you certainly have, and I appreciate that, I have never received the complete ask that I've made. And each year, my resources are still outpaced by my colleagues in the DAs and the police department and the sheriff's department and all of these departments. So I really need it. And I got to be selfish and focus on me, if that's the best way.
That's a very fact-based answer. I'll take it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Allen. I have one very quick question. You mentioned needing 7 positions to be in compliance. Is that 7 positions on top of the 7 that are starting in September?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. Do we have any other questions before we go to Chair Evans, Council Lady Ellis? This will be the last set of questions, y'all, before Council Lady Evans wraps us up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you for you and your whole team for what you all do. It's definitely the Lord's work. I'm curious to know, because the pay is so low and the workload is so high, what other sort of incentives do you all have available or that could be made available to the attorneys?
I mean, we're great people to work with.
Aside from that.
The public defender's office, we have done a great job in making us one of the most highly sought offices for new graduates and people trying to be public defenders in this country. And that is something we should be proud of. It is not for lack of people applying to our office that we don't have the lawyers. People want to be with us. And I think that is because we focus on doing this work and doing it at the highest level. We focus on giving you the training foundation that you need, which is not something that happens consistently across the country. We have a formal in-office classroom and shadowing-based training program that we offer everyone who starts on our team. We give you what it's going to be like in court in our office before you go. We also really, as much as we spend time focusing on what it means to be an excellent lawyer, we spend a lot of focus around what it means to take care of yourself and be involved in self-care to sustain yourself in this incredibly difficult work. So all of the people on my team get to hear me preaching to them about taking care of themselves. They get to hear me say, you're not going to impress me if you go a whole year and you don't use your leave. They get to hear me say, I appreciate you bringing whatever makes you whole outside of this office into this work, be it your family, be it pickleball, be whatever it is. I need you to sustain yourself doing it. So I started this off with a joke, but I do believe that one of the reasons that we're able to retain our staff without being able to pay them what they deserve is because we're offering them a quality of life in doing this work that they love that you really can't find at a lot of offices across the country. And we try to be as flexible as we can be on creating ways that we can offer those incentives all the time.
Thank you so much. And we will end with Chair Evans. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chair. I think my question really may be more for finance, and I'm happy to take it offline, but I may be mistaken, but I feel like during the Nashville fire presentation, we heard about salary savings being reallocated for non-salary purposes.
Oh, I heard
approved by
that too.
finance, and then now we're hearing in this circumstance with the public defender's office, salary savings not being able to be reallocated. And so I'd love to just have more context, and it may require research and particular instances, but to come back and be able to share with budget and finance about that, because I don't want to jump to conclusions, but that I don't like that inequitable policy. And so I'd like to hear more about that from the finance team. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair Evans. Finance, do y'all have an answer now, or do y'all need to revisit this?
Aaron Pratt. We can revisit this. I think it's dependent upon what the request is, based on one-time costs versus ongoing costs. We'll have to look at a couple different things, but we definitely can revisit this and make sure that we're being consistent.
Thank you so very much. And Council Lady Evans, if you could follow up with finance, and we'll make sure that that answer gets back to the full body. Devender Johnson, thank you so much for this presentation. Thank you for the work that you do, and we appreciate you so much. So thank you.
Thank you.
And with that, we are going to have MMPD to join us, and we have our